Okay, so something kind of unfortunate for me happened. So, while I was in the midst of recording this, just about to finish it up, Toby posted a bunch of ARG questionnaire answers from the weird route thingy he did. Fortunately for me, none of it really affects anything I had to say. It's kind of irrelevant. It's just, wow, okay. Thank you so much for immediately dating this, like right before I upload it. It really just means the world. Thank you, Tony. Wow, incredible. Just go look it up on Twitter if you're interested. It's so cryptic, it doesn't affect anything I'm talking about, so it's fine. Moving on. So, I wanted my first video on here to be something more like professional and carefully thought through, but I realized that tomorrow is Deltarune 5 and I really care. I am very excited, so I threw this together in one day, very scrappily. It's not good. This is what you're getting. So, this is just a brain dump of ideas I have. These are prediction theories, kind of like shitty, thrown together thematic analysis that I'm not that confident in, but it's fun, so you're going to read it anyway. This is like less like theory video like you're generally used to. This isn't gonna be like a Carol is secretly the Gaster Wingdings Mancountry type deal. You're not gonna see like a Carol's secret mayor tunnel, but you will get me trying to piece together how I think the story is gonna play out just thematically. Just like what I think would make sense, the beats I think we're getting to in Chapter 5. I know you want some wingle dingles, but hear me out, okay? This is gonna be fun. So Toby decided to be an asshole, right? He posted a teaser of one of the songs on Twitter, for some reason. It is called The Sunset of Seven Suns, and he posted a very aggressively Toby Foxian tweet about it. He captioned it, 10 years ago, I made a song that sounded like this. It's called The Sunset of Seven Suns. This is the hope for Chapter 5 from 10 years ago. Wow. It's just like, I'm not the first person to say this, but it's just so funny how he like LARPs as a Japanese game developer, like being run through Google Translate. Like every single time he tweets, he makes it sound really like mysterious and nonchalant. Like he really wants to impress you with his Japanese Delta Western fan energy, and I just really admire it. Like he was living in the basement of like the Homestuck guy. Like, he probably owns, like, has-been hotel merchandise, let's be so real. He like, knows Omo Cat. I don't know, it's really amusing to me. Anyway. So my question is, why is he doing this? The Japanese post, too, if you read the auto-translated, like, Grokkian version on Twitter, it says 7 sinking suns. So why is he, like, teasing this, is my question. Why is he telegraphing this ahead of time? He's obviously trying to achieve something. It's not like, you know how people will always say that Toby is like an uwu offline boy and isn't aware that his fanbase is the way they are? I don't really believe that. I think he does everything very deliberately. He knows people are gonna freak out over this. It's part of how the story is being delivered. He expects you to see this. He knows he can give Deltarune fans an inch. They'll take 55 miles, they'll ask for 667 more. They'll make like a theory called Deltarune the Tung Tung Suhur theory. They'll go crazy with it. Like, I think this is very mindfully done. I think of this and the newsletter, which also mentions the sun setting forever. They're both intended to be part of how you play Chapter 5. They're expected to be your first impression. It sets the stage, thematically, for what it's going for. And that's where my theory starts. Here's how I think Chapter 5 is gonna pan out. This is kind of like a rough, conceptual guess, just of like, the basic series of events and how things end up. Less the specifics, more just the major beats it gets to. And I think I'm pretty on the money with this, and I think this is what he's going to hit. So let's just cut I know this is very rough. Let's cut it, let's just get to the point. I think the purpose of the teasers, and of building this tension, is to put you in the perspective of Ralsei, right? This entire game, Ralsei has had this existential, dogmatic fear just gripping him by the neck. Like, he's been kirkified by society, and I think Winged and Gaster has just really put him through it. He's just constantly trying to distract himself to escape into these dark world adventures, to just enjoy his time with the fun gang. Like when you give a dog one last good day, that's Ralsei's life. And this entire time, you've been on the outside looking into that. You haven't really had the experience he does because you've been kept in the dark of whatever calamity is coming. I think what Chapter 5 is going to do, and what these tweets are doing, is flipping that. Now, you are going to be like Ralsei. This is going to be your time knowing what's coming and trying to ignore it and just enjoy the sillier, lighthearted stuff regardless, even though you know it is going to blow the fuck up. That's what Chapter 5 is asking. And I think Susie is kind of the audience lens for that. Like, people assume Chris is the protagonist of Deltarune because Chris is the cage. Chris is controlled by you, the angel. I don't think Chris is the protagonist at all. I really don't. I think Susie is the protagonist of Deltarune. Susie is the closest to the character that the player relates to. She is the audience. Susie is the stand-in for you. Because you're playing as the evil angel, and Chris is on some other shit that we haven't found out yet, some triple truces bullshit. Susie is the protagonist, she's the hero, she's the girl. It makes sense that Susie's knowledge gap with the player right now will be closed immediately. The opening scene of the 5th chapter is going to be that final prophecy panel. Player. This is the first time there's ever been like a dissonance between what Susie knows and what the audience knows. She is like the outsider looking in who learns things for you, because everybody else has like a bunch of conspiracies and knowledge they're gatekeeping. You know the same things as Susie, which is not much, and most people are lying to you. So, I think the easiest way to just keep things going is to immediately reveal what Susie found out at the end of Chapter 4. I think the opening of the chapter will be the final panel reveal. It is important thematically that you know this right off the bat, that this will constantly be looming over you for the entire game. And in terms of character drama, I think Ralsei and Susie's sort of conflict and development for this chapter will be surrounding that. I think it will be focused on Ralsei's escapism and Susie's denial of that escapism. I think Ralsei, the thing with Ralsei is that he's been avoiding reality this entire time, right? He's just been doing his job as the hero, in service of the Lightners. He's been ignoring the dread he feels. It's okay for him not to smile, but he doesn't know that, and he's not going to listen to that, even if the sentiment is sweet. Like, I imagine that Ralsei is going to be acting basically the same as ever, and it's going to peeve Susie. It's going to bother her. I think she is going to notice that Ralsei is just fine and the same and not any different, and it's going to really click for her that Ralsei has been pushing this off and ignoring it the entire time. Because Susie won't. She's not going to let that happen. She said it herself. This is not something she is content with. And I think that's going to be a source of conflict for them, and a tool for both of their development as characters. So now I'm going to go on a bit of a tangent. This is the part I'm less confident in. This is less narratively this is more leaning to what you're used to from Deltarune videos, and by that I mean cryptic lore nonsense. And I'm going to predict something. My guess, which is ultimately kind of irrelevant to the rest of the video, is of what that final prophecy panel entails. What I think Toby is hinting to, and I think he is trying to communicate what it is. This is a lot more crack shot, but my guess for how it goes is, to save the worlds, there is only one way. The sun's light will fade for good on Festival's Day. I know it's stupid. Hear me out, right? Hear me out. The things we know for certain about the Final Prophecy panel, there's only a couple concrete things we know unequivocally. One is that Susie really doesn't want it to happen. It's bad. It's just undeniably scary and not good. And I don't think I need to explain why the sun freezing over or setting forever or disappearing would be a bad thing. I think if you are alive and can breathe, you probably understand that. If you have like a brain cell or two. This is less presumed off of any concrete evidence or any in-game hints. There really aren't any, and rather just the tweets and this insistence on the sun going down for good. I think if the chapter plays out as I expect, and it's about dealing with this inevitable thing that's being shoved down your throat, I think it would make sense to hint at aforementioned inevitable thing, and I think it would make sense for it to not be that big of a spoiler. Like, talking repeatedly about the sun setting over and over, it would make sense and it wouldn't really affect the chapter if it's the first thing you find out. Like, it would make sense to tease this, you know? Now, the obvious thing that you could say, and that is probably true, is that it's more just metaphorically the sun setting forever. Just means, you know, the light leaving, the fun that they've had, the death of the fantasy. That's what it stands for, and I think that makes sense. Like, that's probably what it is, and the final prophecy is not related. But what I think could be way more interesting is if that manifests in a literal sense. If Toby makes the metaphor real. Like, it could just be like, oh yeah, the death of the fantasy, the light is gone, the sun is setting on this fun romp through Castle Town and dark worlds and adventures. But it could also quite literally be that shadow being cast. And the thing is, I know what you're thinking, right? The prophecy before this states this is the only way to save the worlds. How's that gonna work, right? Because, like, obviously the sun setting forever would not be a good thing. My thing is that this is a prophecy written by Gaster, right? I think that's kind of generally accepted. Or if not written by Gaster, at least, like, defined by Gaster. And one of the only things we know for certain about Gaster is that he's really interested in an experiment to do with darkness. With shadows cutting deeper, with a shade darker than dark. Gaster wants to make things dark, and you know, something that's really, really bright? Yeah. So what if, to save the world, his idea is to plunge the entire world into darkness by getting rid of the sun? Wouldn't that be metal? Like, that's how he creates, like, whatever is going on. He just plunges everything into dark. Everything is a dark world. This is how the worlds are saved. And, like, the darker than dark thing isn't just, like, hype moments in Aura, Entry 17 teasing, right? Entry 17 in Undertale, in and of itself, was a teaser for Deltarune. I think whatever is going on is significant. It getting darker than dark is something that has been explicitly mentioned by Ralsei, as if it's something he thinks about a lot, you know? Like, he mentioned, but what if it could get darker than dark in the Chapter 3 explanation of Dark Worlds? And immediately after this it shows Friend, who is like Gaster's fucked up little dog. So, I don't know. I think there's something to be said there about the fact a way to achieve that darkness would be to get rid of something that bright. Just turning the lights off on the entire world. And, like, here's the thing. Chapter 5 is the festival, and probably everybody is going to be aware of Dark Worlds by the end of it. How do you up the scale from that? If the roaring is happening soon, what is, like, the next step in a more climactic Dark World than the festival in the middle of town that everyone sees? How about the entire world is a Dark World? That's how you up things. The sun is gone, and everything is a fountain. The entire world is consumed by it. That's how you make a good roaring, you know? That would be exciting. It would be scary. It would be a good way to just leave a good cliffhanger. But I don't know. That's very conspiratorial. I'm just guessing things at this point. I don't really have anything concrete for that. But that is my guess for what the Final Prophecy panel is. It's either that or the way more common consensus that there's like a sacrifice will be made on Festival's Day, something like that, which it's easy drama, it's compelling, I would see it. Maybe more likely, but that's my guess. Anyway, I just think it would be really funny to have like a Westerosi long night going on. Like, it would be cool. I would like it. Anyway, back to the escapism stuff. The marketing for Chapter 5 is really pushing the idea of it being fun. Of it being one last fun adventure, a festival that we can just enjoy. They're showing screenshots of dialogue I've never seen before, and it's like, clearly there's a festival going on in Castletown as well. That's the one last fun adventure, is you have the Castletown Festival, the Hometown Festival, and then the Carol Dark World, which we'll get to soon. And now Susie is fully aware she's not out of the loop anymore, and I think that fun she's been having of escaping into these dark worlds, of enjoying being with the Darkners, it's not going to stick. I don't think she's going to go to the Chapter 5 Dark World and be like, yay, let's have a fun adventure. I don't think she's like Ralsei. I think she's kind of the polar opposite. I don't think she's going to be able to just ignore what's happening. I think it's going to bother her that Ralsei is. I think her going to Castletown after this and seeing Ralsei holding this festival with all of the Darkners just celebrating, it's gonna bother her. This isn't gonna be fun for her. I think that's gonna be the focus of the drama between them. And yeah, this is like, for every character other than Susie, this is definitely the most upbeat and like fun chapter, and I think that's a really interesting thing to do. Asriel is coming to town, which is something I'm excited for. Asriel in Chapter 5, I don't think he's going to be like a peppy, well-adjusted kid the way like Toriel kind of talks. Like, they're kind of implying him to be this golden boy figure. I don't expect that at all. I think he's gonna be really jaded and maladjusted and kind of like, I don't know, just a cynical prick. I honestly think Asriel is going to resemble Flowey more than Ralsei. I think he's gonna be like, just not a happy person. I think he went through a lot as a kid. I think his girlfriend got kidnapped by a demon cat and tricked by a devil, and then his parents got divorced over it, and his dad is crazy. But like, one idea I have that I really like is that Asriel is still going to be performing that golden boy kid role. He's going to be nice to everyone, but as the player, you can read thoughts, right? I would love if Asriel is super performative, kind, and considerate, and in his head, he is just a judgmental, cynical asshole. It would be really fun. Like, you read his thoughts, and he's just sick of everyone. He is bitter. He hates his mom. His dad's a bum. I don't think he's gonna be happy. I think he's gonna be judging Susie that Chris would get with the local dickhead. I don't think he's gonna be a nice guy. I think everybody's gonna like him, and internally he's just gonna be off-putting. I think it's really interesting. Like, this seems like a chapter that's gonna have like more of a mean, tragic streak to it. I've seen a lot of people complain about Deltarune being really like twee and overly saccharine. But anyway, that tangent's over. I am excited for Asriel though. Susie is going to be really just bothered by this, and she's not going to be able to enjoy the festivities. She is going to be clearly just perturbed, bogged down, not having a good time. And she has a date with Noelle at the festival, right? I think what's going to happen here, it's very implied that Noelle's going to come to Castletown in Chapter 5. I think it doesn't really make sense for this to be after the Dark World, because I think after the Dark World the Roaring's happening. And I don't really think there's time. So I think Noelle isn't going to like find out about the Dark Worlds at the same time as everyone else. I think Susie's going to confess about the Dark Worlds. She's going to tell her because she needs an outlet for all of this, and she trusts Noelle and she cares about her. I think she's going to tell Noelle about the Dark Worlds and confess that Chapter 2 wasn't a dream. And that's when Noelle will come to Castletown as proof of that. I think that's what's shaping up here. She's just gonna crack and spill everything. How Birdly was annoying and heterosexual, all of the incidents that went down. And then Noelle's gonna... I honestly think she'll be fine with it. I think she'll be happy. I mean, she had a great time. She got to go on the Ferris wheel with Susie. She had a grand old time. I think if you're not on Weird Out, Chapter 2 was a great day for her. So, I think she's gonna be happy to find that out. So then they sneak out of the festival, they go on their own to Castletown. Chris comes along, and Ralsei meets Noelle thoroughly this time. And that's when you get to go to the Castletown Festival, and all that happens. Having a ball, Nubert's a Super Saiyan, and Susie is not a fan. Why is Ralsei so just nonchalant about this? I don't think she'll fully get that he's just coping. We've been through this. Anyway, moving on. As for the Inferno of Jealousy, I'm not actually taking the Gerson dialogue as literally as most people. Because you look at Gerson's little summaries of the first 4 chapters, and they're kind of vague and not that accurate. Like, Chapter 1 talks about fighting a dragon. Chapter 2 is riding on carriages to save the queen or something along those lines. They're not like a one-to-one of the events of the chapters. People are really taking this Inferno of Jealousy as like a direct teaser for what's to come, and I don't really think it's that cut and dry. But if there is an Inferno of Jealousy and it can afford to be a little off, I think it's possible Susie is the jealous one. Jealous of Ralsei's ability to cope with this. Jealous of Ralsei's just laissez-faire attitude in regards to it, or rather how she interprets it as a laissez-faire attitude in regards to it. Because obviously he is terrified and mentally ill, and it's not fine. And I think she's questioning how he can just sit there and deal with this and cope with it, and how he can just be the hero without that bogging down guilt, you know? And this is really going to be a turning point for Ralsei, who's finally going to be able to actually go, hey, this sucks, right? Like, he has forced himself to be okay with this. He has been smiling so much. He's been, the poor kid. Poor kid has been through it. Winged Gaster is the world's worst father. There's this video on this site called Ralsei's Absentee Father, and I think that's the funniest title for any video. I really appreciate that Ralsei has like a deadbeat dad. Like, that's just beautiful to me. Anyway. And I think, in kind of like an ironic, hypocritical sense, what's going to happen between Susie and Noelle is that Susie's gonna mention Chapter 2 wasn't a dream and they went to the Dark World together. But I think Susie's gonna hide the final prophecy. Susie's not going to burden Noelle with that knowledge. She's going to feel the same way Ralsei felt and decide that Noelle doesn't deserve to live with that and suffer with it the way she is. I think she's gonna be a total hypocrite. She's gonna hide it. She's gonna be like, shit, this is bad and I don't want to hurt Noelle and stress her out and make her think about that. I am going to bottle this up. They are going to do the exact same thing. It would be clever. And I think it would just, I don't think it would make sense to have Noelle have these revelations back to back of first going to the Dark World and learning Chapter 2 wasn't a dream, and then immediately discovering the calamity that's coming. I think you need the first one to have some time to simmer. I feel like you need her to have some fun in Castletown and go on the Dark World adventure, etc., and maybe question why Susie is acting so shifty. I think also Susie and Noelle's relationship has been so... there's been no edge to it. There's been no conflict. I think Susie lying to her on a way larger level. Like, we've already seen Susie lie to her. She was lying about the Dark World. She was saying it was just a dream. She's careful and considerate with Noelle. I don't think she's going to tell Noelle, even if Noelle knows about the Dark Worlds. I don't think so. So, that's the fun gang covered. Except Chris, who I'll talk about that more in a minute. That's the fun gang covered. Susie's arc is pretty clear. She's going to have this staunch denial of the inevitability. She is going to refuse to accept it. She wants that white pen of hope. I know there is also the white pen of hope in the trailer. I'm going to be honest, I don't know where that's going, and I don't really have any guesses, so I'm just going to leave that as a big question mark. So that's Susie's arc, and what I think it will be focused on in this chapter. And in Ralsei's arc, I think it's going to be more of the note that Chapter 4 left on, of him learning to express his feelings and be more honest and vulnerable. I think what's going on with Chris ties in a lot more to what I'm about to talk about next, which is the fountain itself, the Dark World. Who created it? Why? What's going on? What is it building to? This is the part I'm excited to talk about, because I think I am very confident that I'm at least on the right track, and if I am, this is going to be a really good chapter, so I am excited. I think the whole Flower King thing, it's going to happen, but I don't think Asgore is the big bad of Deltarune Chapter 5. This is kind of common consensus. I saw a thread written by somebody on Twitter that tackled this. It was the same conclusion I came to when Chapter 5's trailer aired. This is a Carol fountain. This is a Carol holiday chapter. She is the focal point. She is the actual main antagonist, even if Asgore is the chapter boss and the end goal. And I think he is, and I think there's a reason for that. But more on that in a minute. I think Carol is the real focus. Oh, and a quick sidebar, because this is going to come up in 5 seconds. I know about the Knight discourse, so you want to hear my take? It's Des, obviously. I don't know. There's like a part of me, like really deep down, who wants to be like, you're all morons. I know the real answer and say something that isn't pedestrian and boring. But like, it's Des. It's obviously Des. Like, okay, it could be Rudy, and Tony Fox is like an ableist and thinks disabled people aren't real. So like Rudy's lying, so Susie feels bad for him, and then he's like, I am the evil Rudy. That could be pretty cool. We could do Carol using her Carol toilet. So what she does is she flushes herself down the toilet to escape, and then pulls off her Carol horns to create the fountain and become the Roaring Knight, because she's evil and those meddling kids are lesbian and stealing her guitar. I think that could be good, but it's more than likely Des. Like, I do just think the fact that Tenna gets slashed right next to a Christmas tree, and the knight has antlers, and they just posted an ARG thing where Chris is standing at the lake and is like, ooh, I hope I can see Des one more time, and the lake or the depths, etc. It's come on, man. Like, I don't think there's really any ambiguity at this point. Okay, moving on. So why, right? Why Carol and Asgore? Why did Carol create the fountain? Why is Asgore the Flower King? What is happening? What I think is that they're about to really hone in on December holiday. This is going to be the Death chapter. It's going to conclude with the reveal that she is the Knight. But even before that, and even if somehow she's not, which I doubt, even if she's not the Knight, this is going to be the Death chapter, and it's going to be about Death. What's going to happen is, throughout the chapter, I think we're going to get increasing crumbs building to Asgore about Des, building to Asgore's statement on Des and what happened, because he's correct, but I'll get to that. I think it's going to be, the first perspective we're going to get is probably going to be at the festival with Asriel, because Asriel's ex-girlfriend probably is Des. I mean, I am assuming they were exes. They have vibes, at the very least. If not that, them very close friends. And it messed Asriel up, presumably. I don't think him going to college was just to further his education. He wanted to get out of hometown. He wanted to leave. It messed him up. He saw his girlfriend get kidnapped by a demon cat, and then, like, go into Satan's bunker. And now she's presumably, like, a lake spirit creature, like, rotting down there. Hometown is not a good place, and they have a religion dedicated to the demon that killed his girlfriend. I think we're going to get Asriel's perspective on what happened there. I think he's going to explain the whole pointed tail thing. I'm trying to avoid talking about the things that have been talked to death about, because I don't want this video to be an hour long. It's already encroaching on like 40 minutes. So like, we're just going to leave it there. You know the pointed tail, the poor children. Asriel's going to talk about that. So that's going to be the first perspective on Des, and it's going to escalate from there. The second perspective, I think, is going to be Noelle. Noelle is going to talk to Susie at the festival date. I think Ralse is going to do the whole, oh, let's close your eyes and think about what Susie is doing right now thing, and you're going to get to see their date. I'd like to parallel to chapter 2. And there, Noelle is going to open up to Susie about her trauma and what happened in her perspective, where it's revealed that Noelle doesn't really know the extent of it. She didn't, like, see Friend or see Des get in the bunker, which, I mean, they've already talked about this, right, in Chapter 2, but, like, I think we're gonna get more detail on that and how she feels about it, because that's building to, you know, the end of the chapter where Noelle finds out Des is alive, and Des is the Roaring Knight, and the terrifying creature at the lake. So that's going to be one perspective. And then there's Carol. I think Carol, as the main antagonist, is going to be the embodiment of the denial that has just undercut this entire chapter. I think this chapter is escapism through denial. Every chapter has had a form of escapism, right? There's been the television, yada yada, you get it. This has been talked to death. I think denial is the vehicle for escapism in Chapter 5. And I think Carol is deeply entrenched in that denial and coping that her daughter is alive. And I think that's why she's drawn to Asgore and why they started working together for whatever end he has promised her, for whatever he is attempting to do. So Carol creates the fountain, working alongside her plan with Asgore, and Asgore's goal in all of this is to prove to everybody that he is correct about Des. I think Asgore is the town crier. He has been saying for so long that something's up, that there's a darkness, that Des is alive, and that's what drove a wedge between Asgore and Tori. I think that's why they broke up, because who says that, right? It's delusional and strange and off-putting to say, the teenage girl who got lost, who was a close friend of our family that we're all grieving, is alive and it's a lake demon, because who says that? I think Toriel was perturbed by this and it drove a wedge in the family, and Asriel was just traumatized by the whole thing. It kind of just messed things up. They all really avoid talking about it, like, the fact it's barely been mentioned at all, and we're approaching, like, the third and final act of the game. Like, it's clear that it's a sore spot, and everybody has conflicting opinions on it, and they don't like to talk about it because it upsets everyone. So, I think this is Asgore's big moment where he's gonna prove himself, and he sounds delusional, right? Like, I think Carol is kind of delusional as well, even though she's correct. I think this is denial taken to an extreme, and it's gonna be really funny because it's gonna be right. It's going to be correct. Asgore's going to make his point, and then the Roaring Knight is going to show up, and that is December holiday. There is nobody else with antlers, it is her. They start to put the pieces together. That's going to be the big cliffhanger right before the roaring. They're going to leave it at that. I don't think the end of the night mystery is that Des is the knight. Everybody says this, and it drives me crazy. The end of the mystery isn't, oh, we just unmasked the knight, it's Des. The mystery is what, why, what's the point? That's the question. I think that's a whole separate video that I'm not going to get into, and I also just don't think Chapter 5 is going to tackle it that extensively, so I'm going to leave that. But I think Chapter 5 will reveal that Des is the knight, and it will conclude this identity mystery. That is it. She is the knight. The next question is why and how and what's going on, and will she be okay, and is she alive, yada 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 yada. So, like, all of that is kind of self-evident, though. These are things that people have really over-discussed. I just had to kind of cover my ground here. What I think is interesting is that this sort of plays into the side of denial in this chapter, where it's not really such a bad thing. It's kind of really interesting to me, because you look at how denial is represented. Susie's denial that this is what's going to happen. She's in staunch denial of the inevitability. Ralsei's just denial of having to open up and accept his feelings. He, like, tries to find the joy and escapism in his friends and having one last fun adventure. He denies it all, he just pushes it all down. And Carol, who is clearly having the traditional grieving form of denial about her dead daughter, and in order to cope with it, went along with Asgore, who is the famous town crier and kind of crazy. And like, the thing you notice about all of these is that they're not strictly bad. Susie probably is right and can rewrite fate, because Gerson is very much a writerly mouthpiece, and says she can do that. Like, if Gerson is saying it, it's probably textually approved of, you know? Like, that's just kind of how Toby writes. Susie and Gerson are just the correct angles of things. They're generally right. I think there is going to be a moment where she rewrites the story using her hope. It's been very pushed. Even the Chapter 5 Seven Sinking Suns tweet I mentioned half hour ago, it said the hope for Chapter 5 from 10 years ago. This is the hope chapter. In the main route, this is hope. So, like, her denial is kind of being approved of, textually. Ralsei's denial, I think there is going to be a point made that him wanting to enjoy the adventures and have these experiences with his friends isn't wrong, and that you should try to make the best of a bad situation and try and be happy in spite of tragedy. I think it's less just, oh, escapism is bad, because that's boring and kind of preachy and not nuanced. The Deltarune has always kind of approached it as more of a balanced thing, where if you create too many fountains, the world dies. If you fall too deep into escapism and distraction and entertainment, and you don't focus on yourself or the things you need to do or what matters or the people around you, yeah, it can destroy the world, it can turn off the sun. But escapism in moderation is a good thing. It can bring people together, it can make you friends, it can bring you comfort, and just this whole, it's a sense of wholeness, that's the word I'm looking for. I think Deltarune has always been in favor of escapism. It's not like a boring, oh, it's bad to have an imagination or create. Creating art is good. Creating a fountain is good. It's when you create too many and it melts the world that things are bad. So I'm gonna start wrapping things up here. Asgore's final moment, he makes his proclamation that Des is alive and he knows what happened. And people are actually starting to believe him because things are getting weird. Carol stabbed a katana into the dirt and created feudal Japan in the middle of town. I feel like there's kind of a point where you can't deny that something's up when that happens. And this leads into the Roaring Knight's final appearance before the identity reveal. And I think what happens then is once everybody's realized, oh, that's Des, that's the big cliffhanger, and then she creates the fountains, which leads to the final moment of the chapter, where the sun sets for good. The sun goes down, the final boss plays 7 sinking suns. I would imagine it's a scripted loss, and not like the Chapter 3 one where you can win it for a Shadow Crystal or anything. It's just a scripted loss. There is nothing you can do. I think you just die. And I think the final moment is like an Evangelion-esque end-of-the-world sequence. The sun goes down, a dark fountain envelops the earth, to be continued in 2027. That's where we end off. That is the end of Chapter 5. So what happens from there? I don't know, and this video is 40 minutes long, so I'm going to leave you at that. That's the cliffhanger here. I am going to quickly go over some things. Weird Route and Image Friend are 2 things I want to talk about. Image Friend, I am going to say something controversial that people won't like. He's not gonna be that relevant this chapter. If anything, I think he might also be part of the cliffhanger at the end. Like, the darker than dark happens, everything fades to black, you hear the Image Friend laugh, and maybe it zooms in his face before cutting out. Something like that. Because here's the thing, right? If my assessment is correct and darker than dark is the sun going down for good, well, you know what happens immediately after Ralsei says, but what if it could get darker than dark in the intro to Chapter 3? Friend shows up and smiles and laughs. I think it's pretty clear that it getting darker than dark, like fully, the photon reading's negative, the experiment complete, that's when Friend is going to show up. And I think that's going to be part of Chapter 6, where they explain why Des is like this. I think this chapter will have the Des identity reveal, and that chapter will have the Des logistics reveal, you know? So I don't think Friend is really going to be here. People aren't going to like it when I say that, but I don't think Friend is going to be here as much as people are assuming. But it's the field of pink and gold, that's fine. There's been a lot of pink and gold in this game. There was pink and gold in Chapter 2. There's pink and gold everywhere. I think you'll see pink and gold, but that doesn't mean Friend is going to be like an active, malignant presence haunting the Dark World. I think it's going to be focused on Carol. I think Friend will be the main antagonist of Chapter 6, and then 7 will be Gaster. I think that makes more sense, personally. So what about Weird Route? Originally when I was gonna make this video, I was gonna focus more on Weird Route. I had a whole segment written for it. My thing is that I don't want to talk about it because this video is 40 minutes long. Sorry, it's selfish. But my quick notes. I think there's a decent chance this is the end of Weird Route. It's going to be the most significant Weird Route chapter yet. You're locked into it. Birdly actually dies now. I saw people assume that, like, chapter 4 meant Birdly lives. Obviously not. Birdly dies, they're just giving you one more chance to back out. Once you lock yourself in by, rosing Noelle, shall we say, I think Birdly dies immediately. And my prediction, off the dome, I was going to go more in detail on this. If Weird Route were to end in the 5th chapter, I think how it'll end is that you prevent the roaring in its entirety. What a lot of people don't know is why it's called Weird Route. Etymologically, the word weird originally meant fate, to have power over fate. This is the fate route, where you're filled with power. You're really influencing something larger than just Noelle relationship angst. And I think, in a chapter about denial, where Susie is actively pushing against this, Ralse is trying to ignore it, Carol is trying to save her daughter, I think this is the player's side of denial, where you can choose to prevent the ending that's coming, the morose cliffhanger that's coming. You can stop it. You can end Deltarune here and give it a quote-unquote happy ending. And by a happy ending, I mean a Pyrrhic victory. This is not going to be a happy ending. My guess is that what's going to happen is you power up Noelle enough, you farm all of the enemies in the Dark World. There's like date and stuff, there's like character drama with Chriselle. Again, I was gonna go more into this, but I'm tired and this is late. I think what's going to happen is you get to the final moment with Des. Noelle is just shredding the entire Dark World. You get there, she's powerful, maybe you have the Twisted Sword in tow, and then you fight Des, and it's framed like this is gonna be a really hard super boss for like expert Deltaruners. It's not. I think you use one Snowgrave and she's toast. I think you kill Des. Not beat, not like knock down, you kill Des. And Noelle doesn't know Des is the Roaring Knight because you sequence broke so much. You don't get that reveal. So Noelle murders her sister, and unmasks the dead knight and finds out that she killed her sister. It's a tragedy. It's horrific. It's a Pyrrhic victory. You stopped the roaring. You ended the game early. You maybe made a better ending for everybody else, but Noelle is broken. The Holiday family is in ruins. Des is dead. Noelle is traumatized. Carol is gonna be traumatized. Rudy's gonna be traumatized. You ruin a family. Susie is probably gonna be pretty scarred by this. Just nothing goes well. Everybody will hate Chris forever because they don't know about the soul. It's just a lose-lose for every important character. But I'd imagine something good has to come out of it. I think thematically, there's too much power and fate and control and yada yada. There has to be a larger purpose to it. I think it's allegorically abuse. I think there's a parallel that's under-discussed between how you treat Noelle and how Carol treats Noelle. Carol is strict and kind of controlling of Noelle for her own good and to create a better life for her. I think, in a sense, the player is strict on the world and forcing their will on it to create a better ending for themselves without, you know, consulting anybody else and how they feel about it. I think it's a trolley problem that you're selfishly railing into a quote-unquote good ending for the game. That's how I think it's going to end. Okay, that's it. Sorry, this is a rough outro. Oh my god, also the shelter. One more thing. That cliffhanger I mentioned in the normal route, how it's going to end, I assume they all run into the shelter as the world goes dark. They have nowhere else to go, the Titans are raising from the depths and wreaking havoc, and the entire town runs into the shelter for the final chapter, and then you see friend, yada yada. That's how it closes out. Oh my god, okay, we're done. That's it. Thank you for watching. Seriously, this is my first YouTube video ever. This is gonna get 5 views, and it's 45 minutes long. Good lord. Okay, see you guys around. I'm gonna go take a nap.